The sky wasn't the sky, not in the way I knew it. Above me stretched a mesmerizing tapestry of shifting nebulae, their vibrant hues weaving across the artificial dome that encapsulated the Galactic Eden Resort. This place wasn't just a retreat. It was a paradise, built to house the elite, the untouchable, the ones who dictated the future of interstellar politics over glasses of shimmering celestial wine. And then there was me. I adjusted the strap of my medical kit, scanning the towering, crystalline structures that jutted into the sky. My job was simple, at least that's what I had been told. An exclusive high-paying client had requested my services as a human physiotherapist. An odd request, considering the galaxy's access to nanomedicine and bioreconstructive tech. But the credits offered were obscene, and I wasn't exactly in a position to turn down an opportunity like this. A floating AI drone guided me through the entrance. The lobby was a sensory overload. Holographic waterfalls cascaded into pools of anti-gravity mist, where alien aristocrats floated in meditation. The air smelled faintly of exotic spices, a scent that hinted at pleasures beyond mortal comprehension. "You are expected in Suite Omega-9, the drone's voice chimed, its blue light pulsing. "Your client has been waiting." Waiting. That sent a strange chill down my spine. I wasn't sure why. I had treated high-profile clients before, wealthy humans, some alien diplomats, even an android who insisted its artificial muscle fibers needed tension relief. But this felt different. The private lift carried me to the uppermost level, the doors parting to reveal a suite bathed in a soft bioluminescent glow. The walls pulsed in rhythmic waves, organic, alive. A scent, something floral yet unfamiliar, clung to the air. And there, by the panoramic window overlooking the distant stars, she sat. Silara. Her name had been encrypted in my contract, a name without a species designation, without any information beyond her status, VIP. But now, standing before her, I realized why. She was unlike anything I had ever seen. Her skin was a deep sapphire, threaded with intricate silver markings that shimmered like constellations under the suite's ambient light. Her legs, long, elegant, encased in delicate bands of what appeared to be some kind of living metal, were crossed at the knee. But it was her eyes that unsettled me. They held the weight of galaxies, ancient and piercing, scanning me with an intensity that felt almost predatory. "You're the human." Her voice was smooth, controlled, but I caught the edge of something else. Discomfort? Annoyance? That's me, I answered, stepping forward cautiously. "Name's Ethan." She didn't respond, only gestured toward a reclining couch with an impatient flick of her fingers. I hesitated, glancing at her legs. "I read that you sustained an injury," I said carefully. But there was no file on what exactly happened. She let out a soft exhale, the kind that wasn't quite a sigh, but carried the weight of irritation. There wouldn't be. I requested absolute discretion. I knelt beside her, setting my kit down. Up close, I noticed faint tension in her jaw, the way her fingers curled slightly into the material of her seat. Whatever pain she was in, she was good at hiding it. "May I asked, reaching a hand toward her calf. For the first time, hesitation flickered across her face. It was quick, barely a heartbeat, but I caught it. Then slowly she gave a single nod. The moment my fingers brushed against her skin, something happened. A pulse. Not electrical, not quite warmth, but something else, rippled from the point of contact racing up my arm. My breath hitched as an unexpected sensation filled my chest, a deep, resounding hum, like the echo of a distant cosmic vibration. Silara inhaled sharply. I froze, my hands hovering over her, unsure if I had just committed some kind of intergalactic crime. Her expression had changed. Those haunting eyes had widened, a flash of something raw and uncontrolled, breaking through her carefully maintained composure. "What was that?" I managed. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she exhaled, through her nose, composing herself once more. "Continue." I hesitated but obeyed. My fingers pressed into the muscles along her calf, moving with practiced precision, careful yet firm. She was tense, her body resisting at first, but the more I worked, the more I felt something shift. Her markings began to glow. Faint at first, like embers stirring to life beneath the surface, then brighter, flowing in intricate patterns. It was mesmerizing. Almost hypnotic. She let out a breath, and this time it wasn't restrained, it was relief. I should have been focused on the technical aspects of my work, the structure of her muscles, the bioreactivity of her tissue. But my mind was racing. I'd worked on dozens of alien species before, but never had a body responded like this. Your people don't use physical therapy. Trying to keep my voice steady, she gave a short, humorless chuckle. "No, we do not rely on touch." That explained her earlier hesitation. "Then why hire me?" Silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. Then, in a voice barely above, a whisper, she said, "Because no one else could help me." There was an honesty in her tone that unsettled me more than her enigmatic presence. My fingers continued their work, but my mind was somewhere else now, spiraling into questions. Who was Solara really? Why had she chosen me? And why did I feel as though, in that moment, my hands had set something irreversible into motion? The moment lingered between us, heavy and unspoken. I focused on the rhythmic motion of my hands, pressing into Solara's calf, feeling the way her muscles slowly uncoiled beneath my touch. The silver markings on her skin pulsed, responding, not just to pressure, but to something deeper, something beyond my understanding. I had worked with dozens of alien species before, each with their own physiological quirks, but nothing like this. Every time my fingers adjusted, every time I found a new knot of tension to ease, her bioluminescent patterns reacted, spreading outward like ripples in a pond. Solara's breathing had changed too. No longer sharp, no longer measured and controlled. It had deepened, slowed, as if for the first time in a long time, she was allowing herself to relax. But then, just as I was about to ask another question, her entire body tensed. Her eyes flicked toward the door. I stilled, following her gaze, but the suite remained silent. A flicker of movement caught my eye, a projection on the sleek, metallic surface of the wall. A new message had appeared on a translucent holographic screen, pulsing faintly. Solara inhaled sharply and shifted her leg away from my grasp, as if suddenly remembering herself. She stood, turning toward the message, and for the first time, I saw something new in her posture. Fear. I rose slowly. Solara. She didn't answer. Her fingers hovered over the holographic display, hesitating. The message wasn't written in standard Galactic, nor in any of the major trade languages I recognized. The symbols were sharp, angular, their structure reminiscent of something ancient. Then, as quickly as the message had appeared, she dismissed it with a flick of her wrist. Her expression was carefully blank when she turned back to me. "You should leave," I frowned. "What? I thought—" "I've wasted enough of your time," she interrupted. "Your payment has already been processed. I will not require further treatment." Her words were clipped, precise, devoid of the vulnerability I had glimpsed just moments ago. I took a step forward. "Solara, what's going on?" "You don't need to know." That was a lie. She had called for me, specifically me. She had allowed me to touch her, something she clearly didn't do lightly. And now she was shutting me out. I folded my arms, planting my feet. "If you're in trouble, I might be able to help." She let out a bitter chuckle, turning toward the window, arms crossed over her chest. You truly think a human could help me? Her voice wasn't mocking. If anything, it sounded like she was convincing herself more than she was dismissing me. I hesitated, then asked the one question I suspected no one else ever asked her. When's the last time someone helped you? Her shoulders stiffened. I had struck something raw. She didn't turn around. Instead, she spoke so softly I almost missed it. You don't understand what you've done. I took another step closer. Then tell me. She exhaled sharply, like she was about to say something real, when a chime echoed through the suite. The doors slid open. 2 figures stepped inside. They weren't hotel staff. Their uniforms were too precise, too structured, a deep obsidian black with shimmering silver trim. Military, enforcers. Their faces were concealed behind reflective masks, but their body language spoke volumes. They moved with absolute authority, absolute control. Solara's jaw tightened. Leave. The order wasn't directed at the newcomers. It was for me. Neither of the masked figures acknowledged my presence. One of them held up a sleek datapad, scanning the room with a slow, methodical sweep. Subject's biometrics indicate recent physical contact, a distorted voice reported. The second figure turned to Solara. Explain. Solara's expression was unreadable, but I noticed the way her hands curled into fists at her sides. I requested medical attention, that is all. The first figure shifted their gaze toward me. Even without being able to see their eyes, I felt their scrutiny. Human. They addressed me directly. State your purpose here. I forced myself to hold my ground. I was hired as a physiotherapist. That's all I know. A tense silence stretched between us. Then, without warning, the second enforcer moved, fast. Before I could react, they reached out, seizing my wrist. A sting, sharp and electric, shot up my arm as something cold pulsed from their grip. I yanked back instinctively, but they didn't let go. Biometric analysis in progress, the distorted voice reported. Human anomaly detected. Solara moved then, faster than I thought possible. She stepped between us, placing a firm hand on the enforcer's wrist. That's enough, the enforcer hesitated. It was the first time either of them had shown even the slightest reaction. Then, after a moment, they released me. The sting in my wrist faded, leaving behind only a dull throb. I flexed my fingers, feeling my pulse hammering beneath my skin. Solara turned her head slightly toward me, her voice low, urgent. You should go. Now. The enforcers didn't stop me. They didn't even look at me again. I hesitated for only a second longer, then back toward the door. But as I stepped out into the hallway, heart pounding, a single thought burned in my mind. I wasn't just hired for this job. I was lured here. And whatever had just happened, whatever Solara wasn't telling me, it was only the beginning. The doors sealed shut behind me with a soft hiss, but the moment I stepped into the hallway, I knew I had made a mistake. The air was wrong, too still, too silent. The bioluminescent walls, once pulsing with a soft, organic glow, now flickered erratically, as if sensing the tension still radiating from the suite behind me. I should have kept walking. I should have taken the nearest lift down to the docking bay and left the Galactic Eden resort behind. But my instincts screamed at me. This wasn't over. Solara had stopped those enforcers from doing something to me. That much was clear. But why? And what had they meant by human anomaly detected? Glanced down at my wrist, where the enforcer had grabbed me. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer lingered on my skin, like an afterimage burned into my nerves. It wasn't painful anymore, but it wasn't gone either. I flexed my fingers. The sensation didn't fade. I needed answers. My first instinct was to access my comlink, but the moment I reached for it, my gut twisted. If those enforcers were watching me, tracking me, then any outgoing communication might alert them that I wasn't following orders. I had to be smart. I had to move. Carefully, I turned a corner, stepping into the main atrium of the resort's upper level. The space was filled with the galaxy's elite, diplomats, corporate moguls, and alien nobility, all draped in extravagant attire, their movements slow and deliberate, as if nothing could touch them. Untouchable. That was the illusion this place. Sold, but illusions were fragile. Keeping my posture casual, I moved toward a nearby balcony overlooking the neon-drenched skyline of the resort city below. My mind raced through possibilities. Who were those enforcers? Why was Solara afraid of them? And more importantly, why was I involved? I wasn't some high-profile figure. I wasn't a government operative or a corporate spy. I was a physiotherapist. For hell's sake, a human with a decent reputation, sure, but nothing that warranted military attention, unless Solara had lied. Had she known exactly what she was doing when she called me here? I exhaled sharply, gripping the railing. A voice interrupted. My thoughts. You don't look like you belong here. I turned sharply. A woman human stood just a few feet away, holding a glass of something deep red and glowing faintly at the edges. She was dressed in sleek, dark clothing, her short hair framing sharp, analytical eyes. "Excuse me?" I said cautiously. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "No offense, but you stick out. The guests here move like they own the universe. You move like you're waiting for something to explode." I stiffened. "Do I know you?" "No." She took a slow sip of her drink. "But I know when someone's in trouble." I exhaled through my nose, forcing my voice to stay neutral. "I'm fine." "Sure." She nodded toward my wrist. "That says otherwise." I froze. She had noticed. I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, she took a step closer. "I saw you leave Omega 9, and I saw who was in there with you." Her voice dipped lower. "You have about 60 seconds before they decide you're a loose end." Adrenaline shot through me. "Who are you?" "Someone who doesn't like what's happening here." She downed the rest of her drink and set the glass on the railing. "You want answers? Follow me. Otherwise, you might want to find a nice dark corner to disappear into." I hesitated. I didn't trust her. But my gut told me she was right. I was in danger, and standing here exposed wasn't an option. I made my decision. "Lead the way," I muttered. She turned without hesitation, weaving through the atrium with practiced ease. I followed, keeping my pace steady, my gaze sharp. We moved through a side corridor, slipping past staff-only access panels until we reached a service lift. She tapped a code into the panel, and the doors slid open. "Inside," she said. I hesitated for half a second, then stepped in. The doors closed. The moment we were alone, she turned to me. "Now tell me, what the hell did you do to Solara?" I blinked. "I massaged her leg." She stared at me. "That's it?" I shrugged. "Yeah, she hired me as a therapist. I did my job." A muscle in her jaw tensed. "Then why are they after you?" "I was hoping you could tell me," I shot back. She exhaled, running a hand through her hair. "This is bad." "No kidding." The lift slowed, and I felt the shift in gravity as we descended. She met my eyes. "Listen carefully. If they scanned you and found something, that means you're not just some bystander. You've been marked." "Marked?" I echoed. "For what?" "I don't know yet." Her tone was grim. "But I can tell you this. Solara isn't just some VIP, and those enforcers, they're not law enforcement. They're something worse." The lift stopped. She looked at me. "You still want answers?" I swallowed. "Yeah." She nodded. "Then you'd better be ready to fight for them." The doors slid open, and everything changed. The moment the lift doors slid open, I felt it. The shift in atmosphere. The air was thicker, charged with an underlying tension I couldn't quite place. The lighting was dim, with the occasional flickering panel overhead casting elongated shadows against the metallic walls. This was no longer the pristine luxury of the Galactic Eden Resort. This was something else. The woman stepped out first, moving with a confidence that told me she had been here before. I followed, but my senses were on high alert. I didn't trust her. Not yet. She led me through a narrow corridor, our footsteps muffled by the soft hum of hidden machinery beneath the floors. The walls were lined with maintenance panels, some of them half open, exposing intricate conduits, pulsing with faint cyan light. I kept my voice low. "Where are we?" "The underdeck," she replied without looking back. "Officially, it doesn't exist. It's a maze of maintenance tunnels, backup systems, and storage units that keep the resort running." "But unofficially?" She shot me. "A glance, it's where people go when they don't want to be found." I exhaled sharply. "Great. So I've gone from a 5-star suite to a back-alley hideout. Definitely an upgrade." She didn't laugh. We reached a secured door at the end of the corridor. She tapped a code into a rusted control panel, and after a second of hesitation, the door hissed open. The room beyond was not what I expected. Dimly lit monitors lined the walls, displaying security footage from all over the resort. Screens flickered. Between feeds, crowded atriums, luxurious suites, docking bays. A small group of people, most of them humanoid, sat around a central console, murmuring in hushed voices. Their expressions darkened the moment they saw me. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, stepped forward. His left eye was replaced by an intricate cybernetic implant that whirred softly as he scanned me. His voice was deep and edged with suspicion. "Who the hell is this?" The woman crossed her arms. "Potentially the key to whatever's going on with Solara." The group exchanged glances. The tension in the room thickened. Cybernetic Eye Guy narrowed his gaze at me. "Explain." I hesitated. How much could I trust these people? But then I thought of Solara, the fear in her eyes, the way she had stopped the enforcer from taking me. I had already been dragged into this mess. I needed to understand, so I told them everything, from Solara's request for a simple leg massage to the way her markings had reacted to my touch. The sudden shift in her demeanor, the enforcers, the scan. The words, "human anomaly detected." By the time I finished, the room was silent. Then Cybernetic Eye Guy exhaled through his nose. Damn it! A woman with dark blue skin, possibly from the Tarsis sector, tapped a command into the console, pulling up a series of encrypted files. "That confirms it," she muttered. I frowned. "Confirms what?" The woman, my so-called rescuer, turned toward me, her expression unreadable. "Solara isn't just a VIP. She's a political asset, a high-value individual with classified genetic modifications." I stared. "Genetic modifications?" The Tarsis woman nodded. "Her species, the Velari, already have some of the most advanced bioengineering in the known systems. But Solara, she's beyond that. There have been rumors about a project. Something involving Velari hybrid experiments, but no one knew what the endgame was." Cybernetic Eye Guy folded his arms. "Until now." A slow, sinking realization settled in my gut. "You're saying, when I touched her, when her markings reacted, it wasn't just normal muscle tension?" The woman met my gaze. "It was compatibility." I blinked. "What?" The Tarsis woman pulled up a new screen, displaying rows of bio-readings, Velari genetic sequences overlaid with something else, something human. "She didn't call for you randomly," she said. "She needed to test something, and you passed." I took a step back. "That's ridiculous. I'm just a physiotherapist." The woman's voice was calm, but there was a weight behind it. "You're also human. And from the look of it, you're the first one who's ever triggered that kind of reaction from her." A cold chill crawled down my spine. I thought back to the enforcers, the scan. I wasn't just a bystander in this anymore. I was a variable they hadn't accounted for, and that made me dangerous. I ran a hand through my hair, exhaling sharply. "So what does that mean for me?" Cybernetic Eye Guy's expression darkened. It means you're a target now. They're not going to let you walk away. The woman crossed her arms. And if they figure out exactly what you are to Solara, they'll either take you, the Tarsis woman finished the thought, or they'll kill you. The words hit like a hammer. I had walked into this thinking it was just another high-end client, another routine session, but I had stepped into something much bigger, and now there was no turning back. The weight of their words pressed down on me like a planetary atmosphere, dense and suffocating. My pulse hammered in my ears, a target marked hunted. I wasn't built for this. I wasn't some rogue operative or mercenary for hire. I was just a physiotherapist, damn it. But none of that mattered anymore. The moment I touched Solara, the moment her body reacted to me, something had changed, and now people were willing to kill over it. I took a steadying breath. "Okay," I said, my voice tight. "Then what the hell do we do?" Cybernetic Eye. A guy still hadn't caught his name, exchanged looks with the others. The Tarsis woman drummed her fingers against the console, a slow, deliberate rhythm that made my skin prickle. "We need more information," she said. The woman who had brought me here, the one who had seen me in the atrium, nodded. "We need to get to Solara, fast, before they move her." I frowned. "Move her? You think they're going to—" "Of course they are." Cybernetic Eye Guy's tone was grim. "If she's as valuable as we think, then her reaction to you just made her a liability. The Valari leadership will want to contain the situation. And the enforcers, they're not going to let any loose ends slip through their fingers." His cybernetic eye whirred softly as he focused on me. "Especially not you." My stomach twisted. The Tarsis woman pulled up a layout of the resort, highlighting a section near the upper levels. "Her suite is still flagged as active, but that won't last. We need to assume she's being prepped for transfer. If we're going to extract her, we have maybe 20 minutes, max." Extract her. That word alone sent a fresh wave of unease through me. This wasn't some covert heist or military operation. This was me, a human who had never fired a weapon in his life, now being roped into a full-blown rescue mission. And yet, what choice did I have? If I walked away now, Solara would disappear. The answers would disappear, and soon after I would too. I clenched my jaw. "I'm in." The woman, my self-appointed guide through this mess, didn't look surprised. "Good." She turned to Cybernetic Eye Guy. "You take the tech specialist. Give us a 10-minute window of distractions, enough to keep security scrambling." He nodded. She turned to me next. "We go in through the ventilation maintenance. Access. Less security, fewer eyes, and direct access to her suite's secondary power grid." I exhaled sharply. "And if she's already gone, then we improvise." Not exactly reassuring. The Tarsis woman handed me a small device, no bigger than a coin. "Emergency signal. If things go south, press it. We'll get to you." I took it, turning it over in my fingers before slipping it into my pocket. Cybernetic Eye. Guy turned toward a secondary console, typing in rapid commands. The screens shifted, security feeds blinking in and out of existence. "Give me a few seconds." "There. Temporary security reroute. You've got your window." The woman nodded once and turned to me. "Let's go." No turning back now. We moved fast. The underdeck corridors twisted like an intricate labyrinth, barely lit except for the occasional dim glow of power conduits along the walls. The smell of coolant and machine oil lingered in the air, thick and metallic. We reached a narrow service hatch. The woman pried it open with practiced ease, revealing a dark shaft leading upward. A faint blue glow pulsed somewhere in the distance, maintenance lights embedded in the ventilation system. She glanced at me. "Hope you're not claustrophobic." I let out a dry breath. "I'll manage." One after the other, we climbed. The passage was tight, barely enough room to maneuver. The metal was cold against my palms as I pulled myself up, my breath coming in steady exhales. The woman ahead of me moved quickly, navigating the vents with a precision that told me she'd done this before. I, on the other hand, was not built for this kind of movement. By the time we reached the final hatch, my arms burned. My breath was slightly uneven, but I forced myself to keep quiet. The woman held up a hand, signaling me to stop. We listened. Muffled voices. 2, maybe 3 figures on the other side of the hatch. She shifted, angling herself to peer through the narrow vent slits. I caught a glimpse of her expression, sharp, calculating. She pulled out a sleek, cylindrical device. From her belt, a suppressor. She met my gaze. "Stay close. Follow my lead." I nodded once. She activated the suppressor. A soft pulse of energy radiated outward, and in an instant, the external sound dampened. The voices on the other side stopped mid-sentence, confused, disoriented. That was our cue. The woman kicked the hatch open, and we dropped into the suite. The guards didn't even have time to react. The woman moved like a ghost, striking the first enforcer in the throat before he could raise his weapon. The second reached for his sidearm, but I lunged forward, using pure instinct, and slammed my elbow into his jaw. He staggered. I grabbed his wrist, twisted, and forced the weapon out of his hand before delivering a knee to his stomach. He collapsed, gasping. Holy hell! Adrenaline surged through me, but there was no time to process it. Solara's voice rang, out, sharp, urgent. "In here!" We turned toward the inner chamber. She stood behind a reinforced security field, her expression unreadable, but I caught something flickering in her gaze. Relief, shock, and something else, something I couldn't quite name. The woman beside me stepped forward, pulling out a small device. "We're getting you out." Solara's gaze flickered to me. "I didn't think you'd come back," she murmured. I exhaled sharply. Neither did I. The woman deactivated the security field with a quick override. Solara stepped forward, her movements fluid but tense. Her markings glowed faintly again, as her gaze lingered on me. Then, before I could say anything, alarms blared. The woman cursed. Under her breath, "They know." Solara turned toward me, eyes sharp. "Then we run!" And just like that, we were moving again. We barely made it out of the suite before the enforcers stormed in. The air was suddenly alive with the high-pitched hum of energy weapons charging. My heartbeat roared in my ears as we bolted down the hallway, Solara at my side, the woman leading us with the precision of someone who had done this 100 times before. The corridors blurred into a mess of polished metal and glowing security panels. Somewhere behind us, heavy footsteps pounded against the floor, accompanied by sharp voices barking orders. Sector lockdown initiated. Target acquired. Moving to intercept. I risked a glance over my shoulder. A group of enforcers, clad in sleek black armor, were closing the distance fast. Their weapons gleamed under the artificial lighting. My breath hitched. If they got a clear shot, we were done. The woman ahead of me grabbed my wrist and yanked me down a side passage. Solara followed, her markings glowing faintly in the dim lighting. The moment we rounded the corner, I felt a sudden shift in the air, an abrupt drop in temperature, the sterile scent of recycled oxygen replaced by something older, more mechanical. The underdeck. Again, I didn't get a chance to ask why we were heading back down. A blast of searing blue energy streaked past my head, striking the wall with a deafening boom. I cursed, throwing myself forward. Solara grabbed my arm, steadying me before I lost my balance. Her grip was strong, but something about the way she held me was careful, like she was fighting some instinct to pull me closer. No time to process that. We sprinted deeper into the dimly lit passageways, the walls closing in tighter, the sound of our pursuers growing more distant, but not gone. They weren't giving up. The woman pulled up a small holographic display from her wrist module, her fingers dancing over the interface. She muttered something under her breath. A moment later, A hissing sound echoed ahead of us, a maintenance hatch. The woman gestured. Inside, now. I didn't argue. I clambered in, Solara close behind. The woman sealed the hatch behind us, then activated a secondary lock. The metal clicked into place with a finality that sent a shiver down my spine. For a moment, all I could hear was my own breathing. The space was tight, dimly lit by emergency strips along the walls. Solara exhaled beside me, her eyes scanning the cramped compartment. The woman pressed a finger to her earpiece. Status? A crackle of static, then cybernetic eye guy's voice came through, tense and clipped. We've got a problem. Of course we did. The woman stiffened. What kind of problem? Cybernetic eye guy didn't hesitate. Your security reroute held them off, but only for so long. They're shifting tactics. The entire resort is going into a level 3 lockdown. I swallowed hard. Level 3? That wasn't just a containment protocol. That was the kind of measure they took when they didn't care about collateral damage. Solara looked at me, her gaze searching. They're going to burn the building down to get to us, I nodded, my stomach twisting. The woman muttered a curse. Options? Cybernetic eye guy's response was immediate. You need to get off-world. Now. Silence. Solara shifted, her expression unreadable. Then, softly, there's a ship. We turned toward her. She hesitated, then continued. Not one of theirs. Mine. Hidden within a private hangar. Her gaze flickered between us. If we reach it, we can leave before they have a chance to stop us. I exhaled. And you're just telling us this now? Solara's lips curved, into the ghost of a smirk. You never asked, the woman sighed. Fine, where? Solara pulled up her own wrist module, a translucent holomap flickering into view. She traced a path with her fingers. Sector D12, sub-level hangar. The woman studied the map, nodding slowly. That's doable, risky but doable. She turned back toward me. You in? I let out a breathless, humorless laugh. At this point, yeah, I'm in. Solara watched me closely. The way her eyes lingered sent a strange sensation through my chest. Something I didn't have time to unpack. The woman pressed her earpiece. Again, we're heading to sub-level D12. Reroute any patrols away from that sector if you can. Cybernetic Eye Guy's voice was already laced with frustration. That's going to cost us time. And if they catch on, they will catch on, the woman interrupted. Just buy us as much as you can. A pause, then a reluctant sigh. Copy that. She turned back to us. Move fast. Stay low. We don't get a second chance at this. No. Argument there. We slipped back into the corridor, the air thrumming with the distant echoes of alarms. The woman led the way, navigating the labyrinthine underdeck with swift precision. Solara stayed at my side, her presence a steady force. Every turn, every corridor, I expected to run straight into a squad of enforcers, but so far, nothing. Cybernetic Eye Guy must have been working miracles on the security grid. We reached a stairwell leading to the sublevels. The lighting flickered as we descended, the temperature dropping the deeper we went. My nerves were shot, my legs ached from the constant sprinting, but stopping wasn't an option. Then, just as we reached the final corridor leading to the hangar, the lights shut off. For a split second, everything was pitch black. Then, a red glow pulsed from the walls. The emergency power grid kicking in. And just ahead of us, silhouetted against the crimson glow, stood a team of enforcers. Weapons raised. Solara's fingers curled around my wrist. The woman cursed under her breath. A voice rang out from the squad leader, modulated by a helmet. Cold, detached. Stand down. Nobody moved. My pulse pounded against my skull. The woman's voice was barely above a whisper. Do not surrender. Solara shifted beside me. I could feel her body tense, muscles Coiled tight, she wasn't planning on surrendering, neither was I. The squad leader took a step forward. Last chance, Solara exhaled softly. Then she moved. Not toward them, toward me. And before I could even react, her hands cupped my face, her eyes locking onto mine. I barely had time to register the strange warmth radiating from her markings, before a shockwave of energy exploded outward from her body, and everything went white. When my vision returned, I was on the ground, ears ringing, breath shallow. The metallic tang of ozone filled the air, crackling with residual energy. My limbs felt weightless, like I had just been tossed through the vacuum of space. Then, awareness flooded back. Solara. I snapped my head up. The enforcers were down. Every single one of them lay sprawled across the corridor, unconscious or twitching from the aftermath of whatever Solara had just done. And Solara, she was on her knees, panting, her glowing markings brighter than I'd ever seen before. Faint arcs of shimmering energy danced along her arms, her fingertips still humming with residual power. I scrambled to her side. Solara! What the hell was that? She lifted her gaze, her eyes unfocused for a moment before locking onto mine. Last resort, she murmured. Her voice was raw, strained. Didn't want you to get shot. My chest tightened. She looked exhausted, as if she'd just burned through some kind of internal power source at an alarming rate. The woman crouched beside us, eyes darting over the unconscious enforcers. That was impressive, she admitted. But we need to move. That energy blast, it just triggered every alarm in the building. Solara swayed slightly, and without thinking, I reached out to steady her. Her skin was hot, like she was running a fever. She didn't pull away. Instead, her fingers curled weakly around mine. I swallowed hard, ignoring the way my pulse jumped at the contact. Can you walk? She exhaled through her nose. Determination flashing behind her fatigue. I don't have a choice, do I? No, we didn't. The woman was already scanning the corridor. The hangar's close. We move now or we don't move at all. No arguments there. We pushed forward, weaving through the dimly lit sub-level halls. The emergency lights flickered erratically, casting long, shifting shadows along the walls. Every step was a test of endurance. Solara leaning into me slightly, my grip firm around her waist. The woman took the lead, navigating the security checkpoints with rapid efficiency. Keycards, overrides, bypass codes. She had them all. Who the hell was she? No time for that question. Ahead, a reinforced door stood at the end of the corridor. Beyond it, our escape. Solara straightened beside me, drawing in a slow breath. She was recovering, but not fast enough. The woman reached for the control panel, and then the entire hallway erupted in sirens. I spun, heart dropping. A figure emerged from the shadows behind us, not an enforcer, someone worse. His presence sent a cold spike of dread through my body. I didn't know his name. I didn't need to. The way he carried himself, the precision of his movements, the way his sleek black armor absorbed the light, it was all I needed to know. A hunter, a specialist. The kind of man who wasn't just here to capture us. He was here to end this, and I could tell just by looking at him. He had no intention of failing. His voice, when it came, was calm, measured. You've made quite the mess. No weapon drawn. Not yet, because he didn't need one. Solara stiffened beside me. I felt her breath hitch. She knew him. The woman at the control panel swore under her breath. Of all the people they could have sent. The man tilted his head slightly. You should have stayed in the medical bay, human, he said, his eyes locking onto me. Would have saved you a lot of pain. A deep, primal part of me wanted to run, but that wasn't an option, not anymore. Solara's grip on my wrist tightened, and then, without warning, she moved. Solara lunged. I barely had time to register her movement before she vanished. A blur of glowing markings and raw energy. The air cracked with static as she clashed with the hunter in a dizzying exchange of speed and force. He was fast. Too fast. But she was faster. The battle tore through the corridor, sending sparks flying as Solara's energy-laced strikes met the hunter's precision counters. He moved like a shadow, always just out of reach, but she was relentless, pushing him, testing him. The woman at the control panel wasn't wasting time. "Keep him busy," she snapped, fingers flying over the security system. I wasn't about to just stand there. When the hunter pivoted to dodge Solara's latest strike, I moved, lunging forward with everything I had. I caught him off guard. My shoulder slammed into his side, throwing him off balance for a fraction of a second, just long enough for Solara to take advantage. A burst of golden energy exploded from her palms, hitting the hunter square in the chest. He flew backward, skidding across the floor, slamming against the wall with a brutal impact. For the first time, his composure cracked, his head tilted, studying Solara with something that almost resembled fascination. Then, without a word, he vanished into the shadows. Retreating, Solara swayed. I caught her before she could collapse. She was shaking. "I had to end it quickly," she murmured, her breath warm against my neck. I didn't know if I could hold out any longer. The woman's voice cut in. "Good news, we're in." The security door hissed open, revealing the hangar. And there it was, Solara's ship, sleek, elegant, built for speed. The moment I saw it, I knew. This was our way out. We moved fast. The woman helped Solara up the ramp while I sprinted for the cockpit, systems roaring to life as I powered everything on. "Strap in," I called. The engines whined, thrusters glowing. Bright as I took the controls. Solara collapsed into the co-pilot's seat, her breathing still uneven, but her eyes were locked on mine. "You can fly?" she asked, a small, exhausted smile playing at her lips. I grinned. "Guess we'll find out." Then we launched. The ship tore through the hangar doors, soaring into the endless stretch of space beyond. Alarms blared across the station behind us, but it was too late. We were already gone. For the first time in what felt like forever, I let out a breath. We'd made it. Solara was staring at the stars, her gaze soft, thoughtful. I nudged her gently. "So, about that leg massage." She let out a breathless laugh. "You're not going to let that go, are you?" I smirked. "Hey, I think I earned another one." She tilted her head, considering. Then with a glint in her eyes, she reached out, her fingers tracing mine, soft, warm. "You saved me back there," she murmured. "I won't forget that." Neither would I. The woman in the back groaned. "Great. Lovebirds. Just what I needed." Solara and... I ignored her. As the stars stretched before us, endless and full of possibility, she leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "So where to next, pilot?" I smiled. "Anywhere but here.